Hello, welcome. This is Matthew from LoveBudi. Today we have another Love Tip live for you. 10 a.m. here in the Philippines on Wednesday, July 17th. And right now it's 10 p.m. on Tuesday night in New York City. We do this every day, every morning, Monday through Saturday, and then Sunday morning we do a Love Cast. We go into a little bit more detail. Today we're going to talk for about 7 to 15 minutes, somewhere in there. We're going to talk about addictions. Are you an addict? Are you an addict and you don't even know it? You know, I was driving drunk. I went to Mexico when I was living in San Diego, and I was inebriated. I was intoxicated. I was way over the legal limit, and I was driving my car full of boxes because I was in the process of moving from one apartment to another. And I hadn't finished moving. I went to Tijuana with a buddy of mine all day, drinking. And went back to his place in San Diego. His roommate kicked me out because we were being too noisy and I had to go. I wanted to sleep on the floor in his place, which would have been easy for me to do, but she kicked us out. She kicked me out. He went to bed. So I guess I could have slept in my car. I should have slept in my car. I should have insisted on staying or something, but I shouldn't have gotten my car and hit the road, which I did, and I had done that many times actually up to that point. I had driven drunk, and I couldn't see when I was going home. I lived like 5 minutes or maybe 10 minutes away, and I couldn't see well because there were boxes, so I started to make a lane change, and I failed, and I had to cut back because there was somebody there that I was going to cut off. There was a police car behind me, and they pulled me over and tested my alcohol. What did they do? They waited until we got to the police station, I think, and then they checked my blood. Long story short, I was over the legal limit, and I thought, wow, I'm an alcoholic, and I don't know it. I'm an addict. I'm addicted to alcohol. Because what I had done since I was about 12 years old was I would play with the idea of getting drunk. It was fun to me. It was exciting. It was entertaining. How drunk can I get? And sometimes I got drunk and I'd throw up. Sometimes I'd get drunk and I'd get home. I didn't know how I got home. I'd wake up in the morning and wow, what the heck? What happened last night? And there are definitely some stories that I can tell about some. I was never an angry drunk. I was a kind of drunk that would just maybe be kind of loose-tongued, get people angry. I'd tease people. I'd be sarcastic. I would tease people, but it was all good fun. But the bad side of that, obviously, was the fact that I was endangering lives. Not only my own, but the people around me, the people on the road. And I wasn't careful about that. I wasn't considerate. I wasn't really thinking about other people. And so when you are an addict or close to an addict, what happens a lot of times is that substance, whatever that is that you have that relationship with, it can really make you a position where you're definitely not loving yourself and definitely not loving other people, not being considerate, not being respectful, not being nurturing, not even listening. Because sometimes when we have this addiction, we don't even listen to the people around us who say, hey, haven't you had enough? I mean, I've done that. I've done that. People say, haven't you had enough? I get insulted. And then I would drink more because of that, out of kind of a rebellion, trying to make a point. Long story short, I joined AA. I knew a girl who was kind of a drug addict, who was kind of a girlfriend, kind of not, because her drugs of choice, alcohol, crystal meth, occasionally, cigarettes, and sex. Her addictions of choice all were much, much more important to her than I was. So we didn't really have much of a stable relationship. My alcoholism, we can call it that, didn't really get in the way of hers and my relationship. It was more of a compliment. It worked with how she was. It wasn't really a problem with she and I. Getting back to my own problem. She introduced me to the 12-step program, Alcoholics Anonymous. I joined Alcoholics Anonymous and started going to meetings and things like that. Tried to understand that program. Realized in a pretty short period of time that I was fish out of water there. Fish out of alcohol. I quit completely cold turkey drinking at all. And I realized that for me, there wasn't a strong addiction. I didn't fall back on alcohol. When I had a problem, I didn't fall back on alcohol. So I had to learn that about myself. And when it comes to addictions, we've got to look at ourselves and say, what do I fall back on? This is the common denominator. What do I have kind of a physical dependency on, an emotional dependency on? What have I developed a habit? So first, emotional dependency. When I get stressed, what do I fall back on? Well, for me, the reality that I didn't realize till years later was food. I became a food addict, and I'm dealing with that now. And I'm kind of, I guess you could say, I'm curing myself of that through love. I'm substituting this substance of food when I get that craving, when I get back in that habit, when I feel like I got to eat something because I feel stress or pressure or some other trigger that makes me want to eat. I'm able to stop and take a look and say, how can I love myself more? How can I be a loving person to myself? And substitute love. Now, if you understand love and you understand addiction, this is the transaction you're able to make. You're able to substitute love for that addictive substance if you really understand what's going on. But if you don't understand what's going on, you're an absolutely powerless, like the 12-step people say, over that addiction. I mean, it's just going to take over because there's nothing that approaches it. There's nothing that gets anywhere near close to satisfying that urge, because you've got that habit, you've got that emotional dependency, and you've got that physical dependency to a certain extent. By the way, what I've heard is that nicotine is probably one of the most addictive substances in the world. So when we've got this emotional dependency, when we have a trigger and we feel whatever it is, usually it's stress, but it could be other things too. For me, it's a need to celebrate. For me, it was a need to give myself a reward for having accomplished something. Like, wow, now I can eat. Because I felt like eating some food was going to be just the best reward that I could think of. So that kind of created that pattern. And it created that pattern on a physical level for me, because I've always had kind of a low blood sugar situation in my life, to where when my blood sugar would get low and I feel kind of weak and then eat something, especially sugar or carbohydrates. I used to buy 5 candy bars at a time. That was when I had a pancreas. that was functioning to some degree. Didn't kill me. Now, who knows, because I'm 58 years old and I've had a lot of habits of eating poorly through my life and using food as a stimulant to get me out of the doldrums, or to knock me out at night to go to sleep when I couldn't go to sleep because my mind is racing. I didn't exercise that day much, or I didn't sleep. I didn't have a long day where I was really tired, and maybe lying in bed, stuff my face with a bunch of junk. And then I knew that would knock me out. And I did that subconsciously. I kind of knew that worked. I didn't know why that worked. But it wasn't until I was diagnosed with diabetes type 2 that I realized, wow, I know that I'm a food addict to a certain extent, but I had no idea what I was doing to myself. When we understand our emotional dependency, and you're going to get that understanding from love, when you're communicating with yourself, when you're meditating every day, when you're practicing calmness, when you understand what the love zone is and the love habit, it becomes stark. It becomes just very clear. It stands out very clearly, the kind of addictions that one might have. And we see how we might be damaging ourselves, our body, our lives, our relationships, our job. And addiction is a vague definition. It can be very, very generally applied. But let's look at it this way. It's anything that makes us love less. It's anything that we substitute instead of love. That's a good definition for addiction. That can work every time. So if you say, no, honey, I'd rather watch football than have a relationship with my family. That could be an example of an addiction. And if your wife is upset at you because you think the football game is more important than playing with your son, that could be an addiction because you're using football as an escape. I used food as an escape. I used food constantly. We can use drugs or alcohol or a million different things as escapes. Why? Because that substance or that activity brings us a distraction. It gets us away from whatever that stress, whatever that emotion, that feeling, that problem that we can't handle. It gets us away from that. It provides a distraction. And the reason we can call it an addiction, because it can't really be addicted to love. Love requires consciousness. Addictions require lack of consciousness. Addictions require a certain kind of comatoseness to where you're shutting down awareness. And I've shut down awareness before eating. I've like suddenly realized halfway through a Big Mac, wait a second, I'm pigging out. I'm not even aware of what I'm doing. We'll black out, we'll deny, we'll shut off our ears, we'll get angry, we'll defend, we'll fight, we'll deny the truth. We go into that bar and we order that drink. There are a million ways that we can deny, but what we're doing, the common denominator of addiction always is using a substitute for love. And it's a poor substitute, but if you don't understand how love works, you're going to use those substitutes. Once you understand how love works, love is obviously, infinitely more powerful and infinitely a better solution to whatever it is that you're going through, whatever challenge that you're facing that is stimulating you to do this habit of using this addiction. So we got physical dependency. We can have emotional baggage, that can cause us to not be able to realize, wow, I'm acting like an addict here. Guilt can get in the way. We're confused about what the solution is. We lack self-respect. We're avoiding the solutions. We're blaming other things, the wrong target that have nothing to do with what's going on. Once we have a knowledge of love, once we understand what love is, how love works, then we're going to understand how to deal with these impulses that come up that we could call addictions. We know when we feel this stimulation, when we want to fall back into this habit to where we're relying instead of on love, instead of on consciousness, instead of on self-nurturing and nurturing others and being active in the world, but we're going back into our cave or going back into our coma or going back into that habit. Once we're aware that how destructive that can be, once we have the knowledge of love, we don't do that anymore. We know love is so much more powerful. But how many people have taught you about love? How many people really understand what love is? Nobody I've met. They've got bits and pieces. Some people are very conscious of love. But I haven't seen anyone put it all together anywhere at all to where it's a really working model like we have here. But I'm sure they have. I'm sure people have done that. But I haven't seen that, and I haven't been taught that in my life. Have you? Did your teacher in school teach you how to love yourself? Or did they teach you math? Did your parents teach you how to love yourself? How to empower yourself, how to nurture yourself, nurture others, how to have self-respect? Or did they teach you to clean your room, clean your plate, get to school on time? Your boss teach you about love? Or your boss teach you how to be a slave so that they can make more money? Use you as a slave. Who's going to teach you love? People can nurture you, but they don't normally teach you love. So until you really understand love, a lot of times people have just absolutely no wherewithal to deal with addictions. Once you have the knowledge of love, you have this communication flow. You have this ability to communicate, watch what you're doing, watch what you're thinking, understand. Take an objective viewpoint and see, wow, I see, now I feel like this, and it's making me do this. I'm reacting this way out of a habit, and I don't have to do that anymore. You get an objective standpoint once you have love as your foundation. Once you have the knowledge of love as your center of life, you're able to say, do I want to do that? Do I want to fall back on that? I have a choice now. And the more you realize you have that choice, the more you're going to make the better choice. The more you understand love. Okay, going long today. That's it for today. I'm just going to let you go because we're at 15 minutes right now. Have a wonderful day. I hope your life is filled with love. I love you. Watch this again. Take the course on Love 101. You want to know more about how you can have power over addictions in your life just through the application of love. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye for now.